The immediate one that comes to mind in the current era at the moment, I think, is gender. I think gender is an interesting topic at the moment that we're seeing having some troubles around definition. And I think some of those definitions around the traditional use of male and females and what it actually means. So there's from my understanding, the words in my mind mean that basically there's a biological makeup of that body, and the biological makeup of a male and a female is differently and can be described through biology, regardless of how that individual perceives their own gender. And I think in that case, in my mind, yes, I would say leaving the word male and female the way it is would be very important historically and for going forward as well, and then making new terminologies to fill in the void for where we lack the language to describe how other people feel about themselves and how they relate to that gender which they're biologically given.
Before you continue that, just with the sex and gender part, that it was very confusing for me as well until I read in a book. I can't remember what the book was exactly, but what they mean, like what the actual terms mean. So sex itself is the objective. Okay, look at your chromosomes. This is what makes you male or female. Whereas gender is like, okay, this is how you express. This is how other people see you, which suggests that you are either male or female, but it's not necessarily that way. So that's the subjective one. Gender itself is subjective. It has nothing to do with your chromosomes or your DNA. It's okay, just how you express yourself, and it's suggestive of, okay, it's a statistics thing. It's like, okay, 80% of people who wear skirts are women. Fair enough. We're going to assume most of the time that if you wear a skirt, you're a woman. Whereas sex is, okay, we got to look at your DNA to determine specifically if you are woman or male. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's interesting. I never knew that gender was a sort of a way in which you can describe, how did you put it? Say it again, the difference between the two. So sex is obviously describing the biological makeup, and you have the category of male and female only in sex then?
No, you have it in both, but to say that something is of I think you have it on both. Gender is associated with how you express yourself. And so you may have 80% of people who are sex female, but the way they express themselves, gender, may be like different. It may be more associated with how a male would normally express themselves.
Yeah, so let me reword what I actually meant. So sex only has two categories, a male and a female category, because biologically there's only two sexes. Is that right?
Yep.
And so they describe both of those. This is interesting to me because I think this actually shows how language can be confusing. So sex can only, from what we understand at the moment, it can only have the two categories, and the sex describes the biological makeup and uses the male and female category to describe that biological makeup. When you go to gender, it's how someone expresses themselves. But you can also still use the male and female category in that. Yeah. So now that becomes, to me, that's not fully resolved language then, because you're using the same category, but you're applying a different precursor definition, either sex or gender, and changing the definition of category by that precursor. So if I say in gender, I say I'm male, I don't have to be biologically male. But if I say sex and I'm male, I have to be biological male.
Yeah. I think that's right. Like, I may be wrong, but if like it shows how muddy it is. Like, it's so difficult to explain it. Yeah, but that's a good case where it's like, okay, you want to change the language around that. Okay, male and female specifically refers to sex, and then you can use a whole bunch of different ones that refer to gender, which is what I think people are trying to do. But they're also they're also wrapping up sex into that. They're saying, if you are, what is it, like all those different letters of the rainbow, whatever it is, if you are one of those, it also tells something about your sex, which it doesn't. Does that make sense? Maybe reword that just to make sure, because it's a touchy issue.
No, say that again, actually. Yeah, just say that again so that's a bit clearer in my mind.
So I'm not putting this on people, it's capable for people to say that they are a certain gender that maybe we don't necessarily use. Like you said, male and female is typical, but maybe there's other ones that other people want to use. that's okay. But when they say that tells you what their sex is, what their DNA says, that's when it's like, no, it doesn't.
Yes. So to me, I mean, if what we're looking at is true, the language is unresolved in my mind, because there's no the word male and female can mean two different meanings then, and how do I then navigate any conversation by understanding that? And I will say what's interesting about this is it seems to this topic, and we might have people screaming at us now, for instance.
Most likely would,
yeah. This topic actually has a significant emotional response attached to it for probably quite a few reasons. And it shows how important language actually is then, because if you're getting an emotional response based on just these cues, these verbal communication cues, it means there's something unresolved about the situation in my mind. And to me, if this is the case, the quickest way to resolve this, which is interesting, but is to not use male and female in gender, and to just use it as the sex, and then gender, I guess, I don't know what you would replace in gender to do that, but it seems like in sex it can't be fluid, and in gender it can be fluid, and therefore that's definitely open for misinterpretation in so many different ways.